like to invite the head of department, mass communication, to come up to read the citation of the guest lecturer. While I humbly request the guest lecturer to please come on stage.
Brief citation of Dr. Usman Mohammed. Dr. Usman Mohammed was born on the 15th day of April in the year 1966 in Biu local government area of Borno State. Dr. Mohammed was Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Transmission Company of Nigeria and the Executive Chairman of the West African Power Pool from the year 2017 to 2020. While at the Transmission Company of Nigeria, Dr. Mohammed completed a 20-year transmission expansion plan, the first of its kind in Nigeria. He established the Transmission Rehabilitation and Expansion Plan, which attracted significant concessionary funding from multilateral donors, among others. Dr. Mohammed holds a PhD in accounting and is a fellow of the revered Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, amongst several other qualifications. During his brief stint at the National Electric Power Authority, which was later rebranded Power Holding Company of Nigeria, Dr. Mohammed transformed 2 World Bank financed projects, the Technical Design Package and the National Energy Development Project, from a transaction-based to a report-based status, which was the first of its kind in donor-funded projects in Nigeria. He maintained the excellent quality of the financial monitoring report for the 2 projects, which led to the adoption as training material by the World Bank in the year 2007. While in the African Development Bank, Dr. Mohammed was one of the 2 persons who wrote the power sector chapter of the Nigerian Infrastructure Flagship, a document that Nigeria used in the Nigeria Infrastructure Master Plan. Dr. Mohammed also participated in the New Energy Deal for Africa Committee, which created the energy complex for the bank. Dr. Mohammed, as chairman of West Africa Power Pool, launched the first phase of the ECOWAS electricity market. He also liquidated more than $150 million owed Nigeria by 3 countries and transformed grandfather government-to-government agreement to bilateral between discourse in neighboring countries and GENCOs in Nigeria. He supervised the completion of the 2018 to 2030 Generation and Transmission Master Plan for West Africa, amongst others. Dr. Mohammed is a passionate believer in regular morning exercises and also has traveling as one of his hobbies. The visitor, Nile University of Nigeria, the Pro-Chancellor, our amiable Vice-Chancellor, management of Nile University, principal officers of the university here present, Senate, staff, graduates, parents, distinguished invited guests, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you today Nile University of Nigeria's 12th Convocation lecturer, Dr. Usman Mohammed, for his presentation on the topic, Sustainable Energy Solutions, Pathways to Nigeria's Industrial Development.
Thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank the Vice-Chancellor and the management of the Nile University, not only for the transformation they have done for the university, but for inviting me to come and speak on the topic I'm passionate about. But before I But before I move forward, there are certain key people, sir, with the permission of the Vice Chancellor and the Pro-Chancellor, which I need to recognize, because in the journey of life, especially in the work I did in transmission, there are very key people that I work with. And one of them is Lieutenant General Tukur Yusuf Brotei. We actually work with him to craft the transmission project, Northeast Transmission Project, where we completed a study at that time. We completed a study, meaning counting trees, counting economic trees, and everything without a single death or injury across the Northeast. I have also here the former Permanent Secretary, Minister of Finance, Ahmed Aliu. He was that time the Director of International Economic Relations Department. It was with him that we were able to craft all the donor funding that we'll raise in 1 year. We raised $1.661 billion in 1 year. It was with his support. I have also our senior brother, Joe Gazama Kyari. He is actually one of the legal people, because we cancel a lot of contracts actually in the journey. And he's one of the people that advised that, look, this is how we would do it. To the extent that my GM legal said, are you a lawyer? How did you know how to do this? So I need to recognize him. I also have Dr. Vincent Dogo, former Presidential Action Committee on Power. He also worked very closely with me. I have also Professor Mainoma, former Vice Chancellor, Nasarawa State University. I have General Maliki, who was in the Northeast that time when we did that project, even completion of Damaturu and connecting Damaturu and Gombe. We have General Adewishin also have to be recognized, because at that time he was the Chief of Policy and Plans. We have Rear Admiral Ebi Adamu, who has been my brother for a long time. We have been together with him. I have also Ambassador Mohammed Hassan. And I have mainstream energy representation of the chairman, led by the Executive Director of Corporate Service. He's here. We have also member of House of Representatives, I think Deputy Chairman House Committee on Appropriation. And then lastly, we have Engineer Dauda Abdulaziz, former MD of Shiroro. So all these people came here because they feel that they should be part of this, because they are part of what we did actually. Now, before I start the lecture, so many people even used to classify me maybe as an activist. I'm not an activist. I am not a socialist. It's not true. If I am a socialist, I wouldn't have worked in African Development Bank. And if I'm a socialist, I would have friends like Tony Ilumelu. Tony Ilumelu promised me that he's going to be here, by all means. Unfortunately, at last minute, he was invited by the president to accompany him to France. That is why he sent high-power delegation led by the executive director not. So I am not a capitalist. But the reason why I'm passionate about electricity, that most people think maybe I'm a socialist or a activist, is because of the belief I have on electricity and energy. Look, two things that we have to note. As time goes on, the claim that we have been claiming as Nigerians that we are the giant of Africa will soon diminish. Because there are so many things that is coming up that shows that that can go if we don't do things right. For example, now, if you look at ourselves and our neighbors, including Ghana, what do we have as comparative advantage between us and them? The only comparative advantage we have is electricity. The average cost of generation across West Africa is 21 cents per kilowatt hour. Nigeria average generation is about 7 cents per kilowatt hour. So what does that mean? It means that we should produce electricity here, and that should be our comparative advantage. But if you look at other things, like ease of doing business, multiple taxation, and the rest of them, all the countries surrounding us are unitary states. So if anything that is done by the federal government will not happen in the state, will not happen in local government. So which means multiple taxation will not exist. But what have we? We have state and local government. So it means for ease of doing business for the next 100 years, we cannot compete with Niger, Chad, Benin, and Cameroon, including Ghana. So the only thing that we need to leverage on is power. So if we don't solve the problem of the power, that means with the African Free Trade Zone, somebody will set up his business in Cameroon and be selling to us. So the advantage of population is nowhere. So that is the reason why I'm passionate about electricity. That is why. Now, the third reason why I'm passionate about electricity is that we are a capitalist society. As a capitalist society, we need to grow the private sector. Because if we don't grow the private sector, we will continue to have the problem we have. If you go to America now, you will see a state capital. Nobody recognizes it as a state capital. For example, if you go to the state of Maryland, the capital of Maryland is Annapolis. Annapolis is number 26 town in Maryland, which means the fact that it's a state capital does not give it additional advantage to make it bigger than any other state. But in Nigeria here, because of the dominance of government, every state capital means become the biggest town in the state. So if we grow the private sector like America has grown their private sector, the dominance of the government, of the public sector will be diminished. And even the interest where everybody wants his tribe to be the president or to be in government will diminish because we will have something to do. There are people who will create wealth without being in government, unlike what we have now. So let me start the presentation. Here I'm talking about the issue of concept of stability of the energy, but let me give you a caveat. The topic you gave me, sir, if I'm going to do justice to the topic completely, because energy includes gas, petroleum, electricity, even firewood is energy, sir. So I have to also do a caveat that I have to reduce myself to certain areas that I know and also what will provide the largest impact for Nigeria, and which is gas and electricity. Thank you very much. Now, the concept of sustainability as described also look at what we call concept of economic and also the issue of environmental and social. So sustainability is not just sustainability by itself, but is it environmentally sustainable? Is it also socially sustainable? And is it also economically sustainable? I don't know where I will point. Is this way or this way? Okay, here. Okay. Now, I brought this table from International Energy Agency for you to see. If you look at this table, you will discover that countries that are rich or countries that are reducing poverty are countries that generate significant level of electricity. If you look at China, China generates the highest level of electricity as of today, and China is progressively reducing poverty. The US already they have been stable a long time. But if you look at India, India is also significantly reducing poverty, and India is the third country that generates the highest electricity in the world. But when you come down to my areas where we have the highest level of poverty, highest level of lack of access, meaning sub-Saharan Africa, you see the numbers. It's very clear. So it is very clear that we cannot reduce poverty without addressing the electricity question. Now, General Bureta is here. I can also relate clearly, sir, the relationship between poverty, electricity, and insecurity. If you look at this number here, you will see the places with the highest number of insecurity in Nigeria are places that have no electricity or have significant low level of electricity. Let me give you an example. If you look at Zamfara State that is there in Sokoto, the line that is supplying Zamfara and Sokoto are two lines, 132 kV lines. One is the one that came from Birnin Kebbi to Sokoto to Talata Mafara to Gusau, and another one that ran from Kaduna to Zaria, Funtua to Gusau. Now, all these two lines are constrained. So I want to tell you here authoritatively that the line that runs from Gusau, from Birnin Kebbi to Gusau, by the time it reaches Gusau, the total energy it will carry will not be more than 15 megawatt because of constraint. The same time, the line that runs from Zaria to Gusau, the total energy that reaches Zamfara is not more than 15 megawatt, which means at any point in time in Nigeria, whatever Zamfara will get will not be more than 30 megawatt. And that is why this area are areas of restiveness and insecurity. Now, if you look at the notice where I come from, The entire Northeast gets supply from a single circuit line from Jos to Gombe. That single circuit line, 330 kV line, cannot carry more than 300 megawatt, which means the whole 6 region, whatever is generated in Nigeria, the whole 6 region cannot get more than 300 megawatt. So what is 300 megawatt for 6 states? In fact, because it is a single circuit line, anytime that line is out, the entire 6 states of Northeast will not get supply. The only places that will get supply in the Northeast is Nguru that gets supply from Hadeja, and also Azare that gets supply from Dutse. All the rest of Northeast will be in darkness. So this is how Northeast is also become a plain boiling point, because there's high level of poverty. And when there's high level of poverty, recruitment to restiveness and terrorism will become easier. Okay. Now, I want to talk about the need for reform in the energy sector. Why do we need to do reform in the energy sector? Now, there's need for us to have sustainable private sector investment. If you look at what happened with the Dangote refinery, you will agree with what I'm saying. If Dangote, a single individual, was able to raise $20 billion to build a refinery, when federal government in our history, we have never raised at a point in time more than $3 or $4 billion for anything, but an individual has raised. So it means that we can actually use private sector to resolve the issue of electricity question. Then there is also need for sustainable growth of private sector, which I've talked about. Then you also have to note the importance of electricity in people's life. If you look at the SDG by the United Nations, you will see that industry, innovation, other infrastructure are named as SDG 9. But affordable and clean energy is goal number 7, which means poverty, affluence are directly linked to energy consumption. Now, so why do we need to do electricity reform, for example? I will talk about gas. We need to create electricity market, and why? We need to create the market to engage participants in buying and selling of electricity as commodity in a manner that promotes competition and efficiency for sustainable growth. This is exactly the objective of the power sector reform, is to create a market where private sector will play, and then the private sector will bring their money and they will compete among themselves. In the process of competition, the belief is that the price will come down. That means cost will come down. Now, why the wise? The wise is that we need to liberalize the sector, open it to attract investment. We need to improve service delivery, and then we need to improve commercial viability. As we go on, you will hear why we have not achieved all this, because these are the objectives that of the reform. Now, Nigeria power sector reform. This one, I don't want to talk much. You already know that we have we liberalized the sector, we have unbundled the disco, we have privatized the disco. So let me go to the next one. Now, what are the missteps? Where are the missteps that we did that created the problem that we are inside in the privatization? The first thing we are supposed to do, and that is the problem with Nigerians, everybody is in a hurry. That is why when the power sector is now having a lot of system collapse, everybody is talking about now, let's do regional grid. Everybody that have electricity should have, let them ring-fence themselves, and then let other people who don't have, let them stay without electricity, and the rest of it. And we have gone to do so many things that doesn't make sense. It's because as Nigerians, we don't normally follow right step to do the right thing. And when we go further, I will talk to you about Siemens project, I will talk to you about NIPP, where we make steps. But the mistake of the power sector reform are failure to carry out the studies that we are supposed to carry out. Before we did the privatization, we are supposed to do 3 studies. In Jinedogo, you know this. We are supposed to carry out 3 studies. And these studies are, for generation, we are supposed to carry out least cost generation study that will suggest whether the generation that we have now is adequate. And if it is not adequate, what should we do? And then whether we have certain areas that we need to have generation, not because of inadequacy, but because of voltage stability. Is it not so? We didn't do this study. The next thing, we are supposed to do the aggregate technical and commercial loss. No known company that is doing business of electricity will take over a distribution network without knowing clearly the efficiency in that distribution company. And the efficiency is the aggregate technical commercial loss, which we didn't do. The next thing is that we are supposed to have done least cost transmission expansion plan. That one was not done. And what does that mean? It means we need to also look at the transmission and say whether the transmission has capacity to play its role among the private sector. And if it doesn't, what are the mitigation and the investment challenges that need to be done? That was not done. And that was what I carried out when I became MD TCN, which I did 20-year least cost transmission and expansion plan. Now, the next thing is that when we went all over the world to do what you call roadshow. What is roadshow? Roadshow is for you to go and tell investors that you want to do privatization in Nigeria, and you want to know whether the investors are interested. And what are the investors? Is it Usman and Co? No. We are talking about people who have capacity, who have managed this privatization in Nigeria, whether they are interested. Anywhere we go, we have been to New York, we have been to London, we have been to France, we have been to Dubai. Everywhere we go, we are told, go and carry out the aggregate technical commercial law scientifically if you want us to come. That is the truth. Now, we came back, we know nobody's going to come. So what we did is to lower the qualification criteria to adopt what is called technical partnership. I was the secretary of the RCM, the first private sector intervention in the power sector, where we brought private sector to run our collections. I remember Lisa of France came, rural maintenance of South Africa was here, global utilities, all were here. In the entire privatization chain that we did in Nigeria, there was no single company with experience that came in. Nobody came. Because they told us, go and do carry out private aggregate technical commercial law scientifically, which we didn't do. Now, because we know nobody is going to come, we lower the qualification criteria and adapt what is called technical partnership. Technical partnership is a relationship that does not place a single responsibility on the technical partner. So I just give you a person to support you. And that was how we distributed the distribution companies to ourselves, Mohammed and Co. After distributing the distribution companies to ourselves, we could not raise the kind of money required to run the distribution companies, because what is needed for the power sector is a long-term investment. It's not investment of 7 years or 5 years. No Nigerian banks can provide loan that is more than 7 years. So eventually what we did was we hand over the company to ourselves, and then the company cannot raise the required funding. Then we call Nigerian Commercial Bank to provide the money. They provided the money. That is the beginning of the liquidity crisis in the power sector, because this is an expensive money and short term. That is the beginning of the liquidity crisis that we have. The next thing we did was that BP that signed the agreement between them and the DISCO, because the DISCOs are supposed to reduce the aggregate technical commercial loss. And let me also tell you, after handing to ourselves Usman, Guru, Mohammed and Co, we assumed 25% as the loss, which the qualified people tell us, qualified company tell us, go and do it properly. We asked all the people that took over the DISCOs to go and do the study by themselves. They came up with 50% to 60% losses. And we agree, this is fraud. Professor Menoma, in accounting, when you shift the goalpost, it's not fraud. So that is exactly what we did. Now, we again, when BP that signed the performance contract with the DISCOs, that they would aggregately reduce the technical and commercial loss. That is the agreement that was signed with BP. BP also became directors on the board of DISCOs. So there is no issue of corporate governance, and that is why you are Nigerians, all of you are supposed to know that there is what is called performance contract. I'm sure most of you don't know there is a performance contract, because BP that is supposed to talk about the performance conference is busy on the board of discourse, discussing on how to move discourse and enjoying their allowances. Nobody is talking about the performance contract. So this is the problem that we have now. Now, in addition to that, we adopted what is called single buyer model. This single buyer model, we created MBED. MBED is supposed to be a transitional arrangement where they will guarantee the performance of the sector, and then after 5 years, they will transit. Unfortunately, I know the discussion on MBED, which took place in Villa. I was in African Development Bank and I attended. The agreement was 5 years, but the investors were saying they wanted 10 years, but there was no agreement that it should be shifted to 10 years. But today, we are more than 10 years, and yet, the subsidy keep on increasing. Just yesterday, I read on the website of NAC that the subsidy in 11 months is now 1.9 trillion. So it means that even the banding, where they increased tariff of some people, including myself, by 300% has not helped matter. It has expanded our crisis. So it means everything we are doing things upside down. So we now have to go back to the drawing board and do the right thing. So the single buyer model that you see all over the world, it encourages laziness, it encourages lack of accountability, and it also encourages lack of performance. And that is what we have here in Nigeria. Definitely, you know somebody has guaranteed somewhere, somebody is going to pay you a lack of performance. So what do you do? And that is exactly what we have. Now, the issue of gas also, I have been very lucky. I was opportune to represent the power sector, the NEPA, when they were doing the gas master plan. And I want to tell you that all the policies that we are doing for gas at that time was associated with either gas flaring. So they are all gas project specific, or they are associated with the export of gas through NLG, and also they are mostly unviable, because from 1980 to 1960, all the effort were aimed at reducing gas flaring, export of gas, and it's related to associated, what you call associated gas. Gas that are associated with petroleum. So, and the policy that time says that, okay, if you reduce gas flaring, you take the cost from the petroleum. So those gas that are not unassociated, nobody take care of them, because that means they become very expensive. So that was the policy until the coming of the gas master plan in 2005, which I was part of. Now, the gas master plan was established with a pricing regime that segregated the market into three: gas to power, gas to commercial, that is to industries like steel companies and cement companies, and then gas to gas-based industry. Each of them have its pricing regime, and the price for power is based on its ability to pay. That of the commercial is also based on the ability to pay. But that of the gas-based based industry, like all these fertilizer companies, is based on their price of their product in the international market, so that they can be competitive. That was the objective. Now, the gas, and you know that the gas master plan, under the Nigerian regime as we speak now, 70 to 80% of gas that is produced in Nigeria is consumed by the power sector. Now, let me talk about the Electricity Act also, because we are going to come back to it. When we failed to make the power sector work, in 2023, we feel that maybe it is the fault of the law. So we decided to replace the law with a 2023 law. And there is no monopoly by federal government in generation, transmission, and electricity. And also empower state to create regulatory institutions that will issue license to private sector to operate grid within their territory. It is also expected to address lack of sustainability in investment and improve infrastructure and enhance regulatory mechanism. That is the objective. Okay. After this, I want to talk to you about, is it possible to fix the power sector actually? Because most people feel that the power sector cannot be fixed because of the way, the nature it is. I want to tell you it's not true. The power sector can be fixed, honestly. When I came to transmission was the weakest in the power value chain. And at that time, transmission tariff was very low, 2 cents, 2 naira per kilowatt hour. That our tariff is low. And NAC agree, but they never improve our tariff. But I want to tell you, when we implemented strategies that will reduce costs, eventually, we did, in 3 years, we did about 300% salary increase. And we also saved about 500 million from what we are getting. So it's not that it's difficult to fix the electricity, but we need to have the right people and also the right framework and also allow the people to do the right thing. When we came to transmission after Manitoba Hydro, that time, there was no single statutory audit of TCN. The company was unable to meet its financial obligation on a sustainable basis, and the organization structure was top-heavy. What do I mean by top-heavy? There was a study that was carried out before our coming that shows that transmission has 3 key problems. One, transmission was top-heavy, meaning the management are too heavy for a company of that nature. Now, before the study, the management of TCN comprised of 2 executive directors and then 10 general managers and 11 assistant general managers. By the time Manitoba took over, they bloated the general manager from 10 to 56. They bloated the assistant general manager from 11 to 156. So this is what Manitoba did in the 4 years that they managed the organization. The corporate governance was very poor. There was a poor project conception and implementation. There was no single project that was created by Manitoba, while Nigeria paid them $32 million in fees, but there was no single project that was created by Manitoba Hydro. And the only World Bank project, which Permanent Secretary know about it, NEGIP, they mismanaged it to the extent that only 2 out of 7 major contracts succeeded. All the remaining 5 failed. Now, there were numerous containers in the port that was not cleared. In fact, we had about 800 containers. Some of them have been there for 15 years. Nobody cleared it. That was when we met TCN. Now, this is what we did. And let me also tell you, it's not true that Nigerians are not very good managers. And I also want to tell you that the fact that TCN is not doing well, it's not my fault and it's not fault of anybody. It's the fault of government. The reason is that we had organization, we have a succession plan, which Permanent Secretary know. All the executive directors that are likely to succeed me, either I die or something happened to me, are supposed to be trained, and we train them up to Harvard. I've never been to Harvard, but we train the executive director up to Harvard so that they don't look at things from engineering perspective, but they also look at it from managerial perspective. Unfortunately, when I was no longer there, they carry somebody who is not part of the structure. That is why many people are thinking that, why did I fail as a person? Because I didn't create a structure. Because definitely if you're a manager and you leave and the organization crumbles, it means you are not a good manager. That is the truth. But the fact is that they didn't put people who are trained to take over the position. But this is our plan. We got our organizational chart approved, done by a consultant, and we got the minister to approve it. Then minister, he approved it by attrition, meaning anybody who is not in the new structure, when he leaves, you are not going to appoint another person. I want to tell you, in these 3 years, we reduced the structure from 56 to 20. And we reduced the AGM from 134 to less than 50. Then transparency, we carry out the audit of TCN and deliver the audit. Because if you don't do audit, no international organization, especially donors, will look at you. We also did the 20-year least cost transmission expansion plan. We also came with a policy of treatment of non-performing contracts. And also we enter into collaboration with some state government, And we created the structure called Transmission Rehabilitation Expansion Program, and we leverage the donor investment. And I want to tell you, until today, donors are actually still the best bet for us to raise money. There's nowhere. Donors are the best where we get cheaper money to build our infrastructure. And I also want to tell you, when I finish, you will discover that transmission is a sustainable business. We can actually raise money and pay it off without creating problem for the nation in terms of unsustainable borrowing. So this is the Transmission Rehabilitation and Expansion Program that we created. And these are the donors which PAMSEC can confirm who gave us cash to support the Transmission Rehabilitation and Expansion Program. And this is the country. But in addition to that, look at this other aspect, looking at the support to local production, adoption of PPP model. We also had transmission. We didn't also sit down and say government should be doing everything. No, we have actually created a corridor where we will remove what the private sector cannot do, and private sector can build transmission line on the transmission line and transfer it back to transmission, and will be paid. But you cannot do it everywhere. Look at area where it's viable, where the viability is very high. And we choose the first place on Motosho and Benin line, where we put code line under which we will get private sector to build it. Now, so these are the Transmission Rehabilitation Expansion Program. And if I go further, you will see the Transmission Rehabilitation Expansion Program, which Engineer Abdulaziz knows very well about. It's not looking at transmission from the point of expanding the grid only. We also look at the quality of the supply, the frequency control, and also the issue of SCADA, which is a register of events, so that the grid code can actually be managed properly. Now on SCADA, I want to tell you that 3 times we did SCADA in the past. 3 times we failed, and 3 times it's one single contractor that is winning. So when I came as MD, we did the scoping contract for the SCADA. After they gave me the report, I said, if you are a person and you are awarding contract under competitive selection method, and one person is winning, so that means something is wrong with you. Why would is that your document only made for that person to be winning? So we decided to call a SCADA conference where we brought all the OEMs of SCADA all over the world, and we brought 3 grids: grid of Italy, grid of India, and grid of Ghana. They came. And we reviewed the document and improved the document. But still, I still feel we still feel we are not going to succeed. So what we did was that we agreed that I should go to South Africa. So I went to South Africa because South Africa did their SCADA twice. And twice they failed. The 3rd one, they succeeded. So when I went to ESCOM, unfortunately for me, the head of automation, who is supposed to give me the information, was not in Ghana, in South Africa. He traveled. So I left my contact, and I told him I came to South Africa specifically to see him. When he came, he decided when he was going to Ghana, maybe 2 months after, he was going to Ghana, he decided to pass through Nigeria. He told us he was coming, and we waited for him. Now, eventually, he told us that if we want to succeed, even after doing all these things, what we need to do is that we need to select our engineers, young engineers. And those engineers should be the people that will write the algorithm. They are the ones to design the process, and then they should drive the process. Engineer Dogo was one of the people that trained the 15 engineers that we selected. And we made them to sign bond that they cannot leave TCN until they do 5 years in the organization before they can leave. That was what we did. So the first place we sent them was Ghana. Why did we send them to Ghana? Because Ghana's SCADA is working. So we want them to see black people are operating the SCADA and it's working. And when they came, it became a surprise to them. And in 1 week, engineer, in 1 week, they are able to bring Egbin to the SCADA, main SCADA. Is that not so? So then they start harassing them in their various regions. So we decided to bring them to Abuja, let them come and write the algorithm. And we enter into partnership with PGM of America to train them. Because in PGM is the best system operator in the world. Even when they had crisis in America about electricity, PGM was the only one that could not collapse. And they have a good training process. They are, even the SCADA, the National Control Center, we adapted a PGM model where you have two work centers, one control center, meaning you have we will have a work center in Oshogbo, and then we have another work center in Shiroro. Both of them have the same type of equipment. They will have the same type of equipment. They will be in a bunker where even if we draw bomb, it will not enter inside. And then they will be working at the same time. So they will have one manager, and supervisors will be one supervisor here, one supervisor here. So if the supervisor in National Control Center in Oshogbo is going home, he's closing, he will hand over to the National Control Center in Shiroro, so that if one goes out, it will not affect the country. That is what we did for the SCADA. Unfortunately, everything that we did, immediately we left, was scattered. Now, there is what we call spinning reserve. Spinning reserve in electricity. So when they say the line is, transmission is collapsing every day, most people this transmission is collapsing every day. It has to collapse because the necessary ingredient for it not to collapse does not exist. Engineer Dogo, Engineer Abdulaziz, you have gone to Sigri many times, You know that there is no way you can run a grid without spinning reserve. Probably in the whole world, there's no country that has running a grid without spinning reserve. Now, what is spinning reserve? Before I talk about spinning reserve, let me talk about frequency control first. Now, this is frequency control. Now, what is frequency control? Frequency control means that all the generators that are connected to the grid are supposed to reduce their supply and increase the supply based on the demand. Which means if the discos increase their supply, they take more power. It means all the generators should reduce their generation proportionate to the reduction, increase by the disco. The same thing applies to demand. Now, when we came, there was all the generators are supposed to be on free governor. Free governor control means that they will be in the mood anytime, and that's the requirement of the grid code. Grid code is the law governing the power sector. So they are supposed to be on the free governor. They were not there. We forced them to be on the frequency control. I think there was a time we achieved the best frequency control in West Africa. So the frequency control means that all the generators will reduce. If the discos reduce their power, they will increase. If the discos increase the power, it plays some strain on their generator, but it's a requirement of the grid code. So that means the system power, the demand and supply must be equal all the time. You cannot have demand high and supply high. So this is the frequency control, which is what you call primary reserve. So the next one is the secondary reserve, which we say spinning reserve. The spinning reserve is a reserve which you put some, like motor. You put motor in gear, and the motor is not working. Then when the need arises, let it move without wasting time. What does that mean? You will have generators that you pay them. You pay them as auxiliary service. You pay them. And they will put the generator in a mood that if there is a sudden reduction, either one generator in one company went out without notice, because this grid code actually, no generator should go out without notice. So if a generator goes out, it means that there will be system instability. So this one will come up to fit it. Sir, for our average generation of 4,000 megawatt, the spinning reserve is supposed to be at least 10%, which is 400. Today, go and look at our daily broadcast. The spinning reserve is zero. It's zero. We don't have spinning reserve, completely zero. And we attempted to buy spinning reserve. We did selective tendering first. And we forwarded to NAC, and they said, no, we should go for competitive tendering. We did the competitive tendering. We advertised, and people explained, and we bought 260 megawatt of spinning reserve. Not even up to 400 that is required. Till zero. See, I want you to understand why you are having system collapse, so that you understand. It's not only this one, there are so many other things, but these are some of the things. That is why you go to Europe, there's no problem. It's not that there's no problem. There are certain things that you need to do to make it no problem. Now, the next thing is that even with this, you need to have what you call minimum, what you call N-1. Minimum N-1. N-1 in line means that you are going to build the line in loops. N-1 in substation means that if you have a substation N, Katampe N, it means any equipment inside that equipment Katampe goes out, whether it's born or anything, any equipment, whatever it is, that goes out, it should not affect the supply. That is what is called N-1. So we are supposed to actually build lines across the country so that we make generation companies to be on N-1. But I can tell you now, several generators now, they are not on N-1, meaning the line that went to them, if the line goes out, it means the generator itself cannot generate. So it's out of supply. That is what it means. Now, so in doing that, we also try to treat non-performing contractors. That was why we empower TCN engineers. And I want to tell you, Dogo knows, Abdulaziz knows, we have some of the best engineers that you can ever find in the world. Because if you have an engineer that have no crane, and that engineer can repair 150 MVA transformer without crane, it's unheard of. If you go to America now, they will tell you it's not possible. But TCN engineers have done it. TCN engineers, after recovering about 800 containers, they installed 75 power transformers in less than 3 years. 75 power transformers using in-house capacity. And wallahi, they are doing it at the rate of less than 10% of what we pay contractors and less than 10% of what we pay the time that we spend through contractors. Let me give an example of Damatru. The contractor, when we said they have to complete it, the contractor insisted of $826 million plus 826 million naira plus $5.4 million. We went to the minister, we sat with the minister, she said she will not do anything if we don't pay that money. We have to sign an agreement to pay the money. I took over the contract and hand over to TCN engineers, and wallahi, they completed it at 142 million naira. Energized and fixed the place, and there was light in Damatru. That is how we did in several places. We built, TCN engineers built substation on an island, which was estimated under contract to be about 1 billion. Those guys at Eli, so we have qualified people. What we need is to make use of these people to ensure that we achieve our goal. So we also leverage the donor-funded project to do some work. It's not only in-house capacity or use of TCN engineers. We also use donor people. And in these donor people, let me tell you, I have already highlighted it there. Let me tell you of it. We raised 404, look at it, about World Bank, we raised about 512, but in reality, the balance was to do NOTCO. But $486 million was one that we used for Nigeria, inside Nigeria. That other one was to extend the line from Birni Kebbi to Sokoto, to the border with Niger. So this 486 million of the World Bank was to put N-1 on all the existing substations in Nigeria. All the existing substations will have N-1. In addition to that, that contract was to reconduct a certain line. As we speak with you now, we have several places with high capacity of transformer, but the line to bring the power to them doesn't exist. So this was supposed to do it. And there are several places like Ayede to Shagamu, like Oshogbo to Ilesha and Oshogbo to Ife, like Gombe to Biu to Dambua to Mekuri, like from Kumbozo to Hadeja, Kumbozo to Katsina, all over the country. We are supposed to conduct 132 through that World Bank project. And we are supposed to also do the SCADA through that project, and also put 330 in key locations that don't have. The Jalingo was 330 kV line, but it was energized on 132. So that will solve that problem. Also, Maya Belwa, if we energize Jalingo on 330, Maya Belwa will not have supply. So we have to put it. Then Bauchi, we have to put 330 in Bauchi. So these are under this project. Now the next one is the what we call Lagos Ogun Transmission Project. That project was funded by JICA. We finished the feasibility studies. We finished even the compensation for right of way. We have estimated was 3 billion. Only payment of right of way was remaining. And that project will put 5 number substations at the industrial heart of Nigeria. It will put 330 in Ogijo, 330 in Mountain on Fire, and 330 at New Apara. It will put 132 in Redeem, 132 in Badagry. That area will have been energized and is the heart of Nigeria industrialization. I want to tell you that as of today, distinguished Vice Chancellor, as of today, the project was left the way I left it. Nothing has moved. Nothing. The funding is there, everything is there, nothing has moved. Now, the next one is the African Development Bank project, which I think generally you will know. We actually carry out a study which we call Northeast Transmission Project, which is part of the African Development Bank project. So that project, 410 million, we couldn't get the African Development Bank to approve. And I remember, Aliu, you helped me to cancel one project so that they give me the money. Unfortunately, the country office decided to allocate it to rural electrification. Remember? So we have no way to get the approval at 410. So it was approved on a programmatic approach that we get 210 million now, then the balance of the 200 million will come after the next window, which will be in 2021. That was what we agreed with the African Development Bank. Now, this project was supposed to put transmission line from Alauji to Uweri to Onitsha. If you remember, under the NIPP, that line was awarded, but it cannot be realized. It's gone. And let me tell you, for anybody to know, that line created the most difficult problem for transmission. Most of the line transmission instability, more than 40% come from that line. Because we have significant generators around Alauji, Uweri, and then we even have Bahrain, and all of them are coming through that line. Most of the time, the line will go off. So we have to rebuild that line, and we are building it cord line, not double circuit, cord line. Then that project will also do Delta Benin. It will also do Kaduna, Kano. All of them are cord line, and you put 330 kV substation in Kaduna, 330 kV substation in Zaria. So, and then the Northeast project, which we did together with you, sir, was supposed to put 132 kV substation in Manguno, Marte line and substation in Manguno, Marte, Dikwa, Bama, Goza. It will also put 132 kV substation in Jada and Ganye, and also Bunyadi and Kwayakusar. Now, that project is very, very significant because some of the areas that are in the northeast, like Manguno and Marte, those areas, some of them are more than 1,000 kilometers for the nearest generation station. So if you have a town that is far from a generation station and is getting supplied through 11 kV or 33 kV, so you know the voltage will be very poor. It cannot be useful. So our intention was to put 132 on that line. I want to tell you that since my exit, nobody is talking about that transmission, notice transmission. Nobody even approached the African Development Bank to see how it is realized. So we also had several collaborations with the donors. It was under this kind of collaboration that we got JICA to put a capacitor bank in Apo and in Kefi, all costing about $30 million. And all this one, unfortunately, all these things, including collaboration with the state government, none of them is happening now. Now, even after doing all this, we will have realized on the existing substations what we call N-1 in the existing substations. But in terms of line, we cannot realize it. For example, there's another project I didn't talk about it, JICA, AFD. They are supposed to put 5 number substations in Abuja. They are also supposed to put one new line that will come from Lafayette to Abuja. Then the other AFD project is a French Development Agency project. It's supposed to do a line from Kayenji, Birninkebi, Sokoto, and also from Katsina, Daura, Gwiwa, Jogana, and also from Kaduna to Shiroro. And then it puts about 5 substations in the northwest. But with all this, we cannot realize what you call N-1, even in terms of 330. So we have to come up with a second phase. And that is the second phase, which we took to ECOWAS. And it was approved in ECOWAS as a priority project of ECOWAS, as part of the priority project of ECOWAS. And that will mean that we are going to do Eastern Backbone. The Eastern Backbone will run from Sokoto to Kauranamoda to Sokoto, and then also from Kano, that is Jogana, Duse, Azare, Potoskum, Biu, Hong, Yola, Jalingo, Mambila, Kashimbila, Ogoja, Ikom, and Calabar. That project will have solved the problem of the Northeast. It means that if we do that project, Northeast can get supply through Kano, and they get supply through Calabar. It will also mean Kano will be consistent with N-2, like Abuja is going to be consistent with N-2, meaning if 2 lines goes out, Kano will still get supply. Meaning Kano will get supply through, that means Kaenji can supply Kano through Sokoto. And then Kano can get supply through Shiroro, through Kaduna. Kano can get supply through Calabar. That's what it means. The same thing Kaduna will have also consistent with N-3. And if you look at the line Omotosho, Benin, also is part of Omotosho Benin Code line. That line is also necessary because if you look at Lagos now, the lines that are connected to Lagos now are the single circuit line that run from Omotosho to Benin. And then the line that we are constructing, which has not been completed till date, that is Benin North to Oshogbo. We did all we can. There was a problem by 2 people who created problem, which we were trying to resolve before my exit. Up to now, there's nothing that has been done. But even if you complete that line that will run from Benin North to Ayede, and then Ayede will now go to Lagos, still there is a constraint. And the constraint cannot be solved by going to Benin TS, because Benin TS is congested by building houses. So we have to do Benin North. So if we have a code line from Benin North to Omotosho, in Omotosho we already have 2 double-circuit lines that one go to Ikeja West and one go to Egbin. We also have a double-circuit line we are constructing that will go to Epe, from Epe to Inter Aja. So the only missing link now is from Omotosho to Benin. So that was the line we planned to do, and we have carried out the study actually, to do a private sector system where the private sector will build it and get their money from the transmission, this thing, and then return it like PPP. That was what we did. But again, there's another problem that we need to do. There's what we call Southern Backbone. Deltas, the whole of South-South now. South-South are the most endowed area in terms of generation. But South-South are not endowed in terms of transmission. Because now, what are the transmission lines that run in South-South? It is the Delta Benin, and then also Opai to Onitsha, and also from Port Harcourt to Afam. These are the distances. So we need to close the loop by building a line from Delta to Port Harcourt. We need to do that one. We also need to close the loop between Omotosho and Opai and Delta. The reason is that right now, Delta Power Plant is on a radial line. Anytime there's a problem between Onitsha and Opai, that line is out. The same way, Calabar Power Plant, anytime there's a problem between Ikweta Bene and Calabar Power Plant is out. So the purpose of putting N-1, which this one will close, will create all the necessary lines to put N-1, is to create N-1 for line, so that there will be loop everywhere. So that if there's a problem here, you can transport backward and forward. So these are the map of Nigeria. I'm sure you know, if you look at it, you will see places that are empty. If you look at the northeast, it's empty. Look at the northwest, it's empty. These are the places that, and if you look at Cross River somewhere here, you will see that these are the proposed line. The whole of northern Cross River is empty. So these are the plans that the phase 2 was to solve the problem of either poverty of electricity, also creating the loop, and also providing a strong grid that can withstand whatever shock that exists. Now, we talk much about regional grid. I think we need to talk about it. Engineer, I think you can challenge me. But me, I don't see the viability. Engineer Lamu is here, the MD of Mainstream. Your Excellency, sir, Engineer Lamu is here. So, Engineer Lamu, the more talk about of regional grid. How are you going to create the regional grid? I talked to you about the Southwest now. That the Southwest, where are you going to cut the Southwest to give them their own grid so that they can supply themselves? You disconnect them from Benin, and then where do they get supply apart from what they get from Egbin? Egbin consistently is on the average about 600, 700 megawatt. Can 600, 700 megawatt supply Lagos? No. Or the Southwest? No. So where do they get the supply? They get part of their supply from Kayenji and Jeba that move through Ilorin to Ibadan, to Lagos. So if you say, let's do regional grid, it means you are going to cut this one from that place. So the next thing I want to talk about is that which study that tell them to do all this regional grid and super grid? Because the last study that was carried out that indicated that we should not go to super grid by our development capacity now was the 20-year least cost transmission expansion plan, which was done by Mrs. Fishner and updated by JACA. All of them said at this point of development, we should not go to super grid or any other something like regional grid because there's no viability. And secondly, most people are thinking that somebody look at me and say, you are from the Northeast. When we do regional grid, you will not have supply. But what the person does not know is that this endowment is not fixed. If you look at the current trend that is going on worldwide now, you will discover that the cost of solar is coming down. Cost of solar battery is coming down. So eventually it's likely that wind, the sun is going to be our main source of generation. And why do you have large endowment for solar? It's in the northeast and the northwest, of course. That is where you have high sun and you have also large spans of land with low population where you can build big solar generation. So when people are talking, they don't even look at the future. They talk about now and tomorrow. And we don't even do the right thing when we're talking about now. So for me, the only two regions that you can say they are self-sustaining in terms of generation are South-South and maybe North Central. I believe what North Central is generating now through Kayenji, Shiroro, Jeba, and Zungeru. And it's not consumed by North Central. They can't consume it. That is the truth. You understand? The next region that is generating more than what they consume is South-South. Isn't it? Because if you look at all the generators in Afam, you add Opai, you add Delta, Sapele, and the one in Benin, including the Azura. South cannot consume it. So these are the only two regions that have enough energy, they can say quote everywhere. But all of them, including the central, they have transmission problem. If you quote it, how are you going to transmit the electricity to the North Central? The same thing, South-South, if you disconnect all those ones, how are you going to transmit the electricity among themselves? That is the truth. So all this talk about super grid and regional grid are also talk show. It's not practical. It will not work. And you can Google it. What is the requirement of super grid? You need to have a big point of demand, very big, and then you have to have a big point of supply. Then you connect them. That is the super grid. We don't have that in Nigeria. We don't have it. So that is why we need to be more reasonable. The best bet we have, and then we are talking about regional grid safe. Look, recently they commissioned a 12 megawatt. In Niger. Who commissioned it? Who did it? Who built it for Niger? It was Morocco. While we are busy disconnecting Niger, Morocco was busy trying to build a 12 megawatt generation to them. Did you know the reason why? When we come to WAP, I will tell you why it is like that. And why Nigeria, we are not driven by thinking and by policy. By policy. Now, this is what we did in WAP. This is our strategy in WAP. We completed the first phase of the market. We liquidated over $200 million and transferred transit the agreement to grandfather agreement. That is why when somebody was telling me that Niger is owing Nigeria, I said maybe mainstream do I refuse to collect their money because there's no basis for them to owe. Because we have liquidated the loan. In fact, in liquidating the outstanding, we disconnected Benin once. We have disconnected Benin once because of that. Now we have transited to bilateral, and we have resolved the issues of the PIU of the NOTCO, which is being under construction, and then drafted policy on WAP and created and widely. But let me tell you, Nigeria is funding WAP. We are the largest. In fact, before we pay more than 50% of the cost of funding of WAP. Nigeria is the chairman of WAP. But do you know that Nigeria doesn't have policy on WAP? We don't have a policy on WAP. When our management drafted a policy for WAP, we circulated to all the government agents. Nobody replied us. Nobody replied us. And let me tell you why Morocco went and built 12 megawatt in Niger. Morocco has been lobbying to become part of WAP since WAP was created. They are observer. You remember how we did coup for Morocco when they said they want to host the conference? You remember? And you see how the French colonies are dilly-dallying with them. So they came and built 12 megawatt to please Niger, so that when the decision to consider them to come to WAP, to ECOWAS, Niger should be very happy with them. And the main reason why Morocco want to enter WAP is because of electricity. So the market that we have failed to take, WAP, which we nurture with our money, which we created, Morocco is waiting to take over. And Morocco is working hand in hand with France. And let me tell you, with what happened in Niger, you know that you can control a country that supplies them electricity. You don't have to disconnect them, but you can threaten to disconnect, isn't it? But what are we doing? We are waiting for Morocco to take over this market, which we have significant comparative advantage to our distance. So let me go to the next. Now, this is the problem we have with the discourse. You remember I told you that commercial bank handed over, and you remember, even the commercial bank, they have inter-second leg now. Because the commercial bank took over 6 of the distribution companies. And again, we sold to other people, non-entities again. Instead of us to do the right thing as 40% shareholder and as owner of regulation and also owner of policy. What we did, we still hand over to the same Nigerian factor that have no capacity to invest. That's what we did. And this is why, since the handover of the disco to the disco, there's no disco that has built a single injection substation. And even on the side of the disco, we can never have reliable power supply. So our system will continue to collapse. Why? Most of the discos are supplying power on 33 kV direct line, which means fault on 415 can directly hit transmission breaker. So if you have, like when we had a disagreement with one of the discos, and we had a generation, we have a substation, 330 kV substation, that lost supply 350 megawatt in less than 10 minutes. When you have this kind of loss, what do you have? You get system instability, one, meaning it can lead to system collapse. Secondly, you get problem with overvoltage, because some of the terminal equipment like lighting arrestor can even catch fire and burn transformer inside the substation. That is the truth. So that disco, I raised up and I granted a press conference and I said that disco has a fragile network. The disco came out and said that I'm lying. The problem is not their own, it's the problem of protection coordination. Meaning we and them, we are having problem. We are not sitting down to coordinate our this thing. Suddenly, NAC replied, they did press conference, and they supported the disco. They say, I'm lying. I said, we are lying, we in TCN. So we said, okay, no problem. We wrote to NAC and said, let's sit down and discuss. When we sit down and discuss with the disco, we prove to NAC that that particular disco, 93% of their interface connection with us have no protection or are not in line with protection standard. Instead of NAC to sit down and discuss how to solve that problem, What did they do? Clap for TCN. This is the kind of presentation we want. Dismiss. Meeting has finished. Till date, nothing was done on it. Till date, nothing has done on it. So how can you have a system that will look, if you go to Europe, you will see 33 kV breaker that will last 10 years and it has never acted. But here, 33 kV breaker will close and open 10, 20 times in a day. In a day. So TCN is buying 33 kV breaker like they are buying groundnut every time they are buying, because the activity that the breaker is doing will determine whether the breaker will last long or die early. So this is the problem. So these costs are not meeting their financial obligation, and we have long line of 33 kV line without injection substation. So what do we did? We will soon close. We are getting to the end. We will soon close. What did we do in TCN? After we did the investment for TCN, come up with the transmission rehabilitation expansion program, and also phase 1 and phase 2. We simulated the investment requirement of the discos for them to be reliable and viable. And we forwarded to NAC. NAC said they don't agree with us. What you are saying, we don't agree. So we said, what do? They said they have to get a consultant to verify what we did. We told them, get a consultant, TCN will pay for the consultant. And they got a consultant and we pay. And the consultant verify and even increase the money we determine. Because we stop at 33 kV, 11 kV injection substation. The consultant went to 415 level, and it was given to NAC. This was done in 2019. Till date, nothing is done on it. Nobody did anything on it. So this is the investment that we did for the simulation we did for every disco. Now, you have to understand electricity, and the engineers here will appreciate what I'm saying. You know, this is the point of transmission. This is the point of transmission. This is the 33 kV breaker. This is the disco. When all the discos, all the extension they are doing now, if you come to Abuja now, we are in Abuja, all this area where we are now, they are not connected on injection substation. They are fed on 33 kV direct connection. So if there's a problem, it's TCN breaker that will act. So when you have numerous of this kind of arrangement, where the discos are mostly on 33 kV direct connection, immediately there is weather problem or rain or anything, the system they will one by one trip. When they trip, that is just instability already. So it's not only spinning reserve that we need, it's not only transmission line that will provide alternatives, we also need to fix the distribution network so that they don't provide significant level of instability to the system. So I think this one, I don't need to talk about it, it's talking also about the efficiency. Now, the implementation challenges of this, the act now, the new act. The new act has said they should demonopolize distribution, transmission, they should demobilize distribution, and then discos and the state can become actors. These are the challenges that we have to also be very careful. See, as far as I'm concerned, this MITO that was created by BPE has failed. And if you look at all the tariff policy, including the one they call service reflective tariff, has collapsed. The banding tariff, with the recent announcement by NAC that the liabilities of the power sector to the disco has increased to 1.9 trillion in 11 months. It shows it has collapsed. Because if you increase people's tariff and yet the liability is increasing, what does that mean? It has failed. So we have to look at how we are going to solve this problem. We need to correct this issue of MATO and get a better way of financing electricity. And as for me, my suggestion is that, and we have written to government, my suggestion is that government has made a mistake, and government cannot run away from its mistake. But also, government is funding so many agencies that doesn't make sense. For example, sir, with due respect, sir, all the funding we are doing for rural electrification, we are putting several billion, 750 billion, 250 billion, and all this one. Those money, we are putting capacity access, expensive access in places where we have the poorest people. Who is going to maintain that access? We are putting access to the poorest people of Nigerians. The access using solar is the most expensive, and we are putting it at a place where the poorest people exist. I want to tell you that there is no solar homes that was created through FADAMA or through African Development, Rural Agriculture or community-based in the last 10 years that will go and you see the solar, because we don't have capacity to maintain them. So why can't government use this money to capitalize the disco? What we suggest, and we wrote to government, is that government should put their 40% and let the discos bring their own 40% and 60%. Any disco that doesn't have that money should sell. But there's a caveat. If you give them the money, like the money of central bank that was given to discos, and most of them use procurement to steal the money, to take away the money, that doesn't make sense. So NAC must operationalize their own regulation on investment. The investment regulation part 4 stated very clearly that all licensees must do their procurement competitively so that nobody will come and be stealing this money through procurement. So that's all. What we have to be careful about is that we are going to create additional regulators across the 36 states. And these regulators, who is going to pay them? Is the power sector. Right now, one of the biggest problems we have created institutions, DISCOs, GENCOs, all over the place, with the executive directors, with the managing directors all over the place. And who is paying them? Instead of one NEP at that time, now you have about 36 or 40 management that they are getting their money, including NAC. They are getting their payment from the sector. Now you are creating another 36 regulators, which will get their money from the sector. So if we don't increase the capacity of the sector, and it remains 4,000, and we are putting all this wahala on top of the sector, what do you expect? The tariff will become unbearable, and that is the truth. And secondly, we don't know how we are going to manage the relationship between discos. Some of these discos states are owing the discos huge amount of money. Now you say the states are regulators. So how are you going to manage the relationship? You are owing me, and now you are controlling me. How does will come up, will work? Especially we want private sector investment. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is that whatever we want to do, even this act, can it intensify competition? In my own belief, it's not true. I know of a state governor who hired some people from Egypt who came as investors. They confided in me, because I know them, that they are investors. So they are investors, they will do transmission, distribution in that state. But in reality, these people have nothing. They were hired, even the suit they wear, they were given. So how do we create a sustainable power sector with this kind of governors that cannot even pay salary of their staff, and we say they are going to take over Disco to provide money? I don't see how that will work. Now, we after this one, only 2 slides. Now, the much talk about debate on the rural last mile. This issue of all this solar panel and all this one we are putting in the Disco, and all the extension we are doing, who is regulating it? Who is regulating it? Who is regulating the rural distance? NAC is not regulating REA. No, NAC is not regulating it. And this is a model that when we created in 2000 and I remember 2007, I know Kenya, Mozambique, and some other countries came to copy this model from Nigeria. But has this model worked for us? If you look at REA now, as it is today now, it's just an instrument that National Assembly are using to siphon money. So, if we want REA to work, we have to position REA to work. And how do we position them? They have to start doing what the Act said. The Act says that there shall be rural electrification plans that will be approved by the President. It was approved by the President in 2016. Now, the next thing the Act said, there has to be rural electrification fund. And that rural electrification fund is supposed to be administered by Rural Electrification Agency. Now, what does that mean? It means the agency are supposed to be working with the states to advance fund for states that perform certain work according to the engineering standard, so that rural electrification stop being instrument used by members of House of Representatives and Senate for advancing contract that doesn't make sense. We continue to extend line that doesn't exist. For example, we don't have enough supply in the substation. We are extending them every day without study, without anything. The next thing is that we need to know how to deal with embed. Nobody is talking about how to deal with embed. There's what we call tariff shortfall, and there's what we call revenue shortfall. We need to reconcile them. Even TCN, officially, these costs are owing TCN 485 billion when I was leaving TCN. That's what they're owing. So we need to regulate who is owning who. The reality of the matter is that if you reconcile this document, most of these owners of this code, they will run away because they don't have anything there. And the reality is that most of the owners of this codes are making profit on procurement. It's procurement. So NAC need to act, and everybody need to do the right thing. We need to, now we are talking about unbundling TCN. Engineer, they are talking about unbundling TCN. NAC is not interested in building the system, but they are only interested in creating administrator to administer the system. How do you administer the system without SCADA, sir? Sir, how do you administer the system without SCADA? All the effort, including the conference we did on SCADA, none of them NAC are but what they are interested in is to create a system administrator. Creating the system administrator is additional cost on the agency. It means TCN will have two management also, which what? Who will pay? Still this 4,000 megawatt is what will pay. That's what it means. So all this regulatory inconsistency, we need to address it. And for me, like Dangote has put his money and he's collecting his profit. Anybody who want to buy this school, put your money, put investment, and then recoup your investment in the next 20 years or 15 years. But you take a disco, you don't want anything. And Maito said they will give you the tariff, and then in the process you raise the money. This has not worked since 2013. So we have to do away with this arrangement. Is it not so, sir? How do you continue that arrangement? It doesn't work. It's not working. So that is it. Now, way forward. This is the second to the last slide. Now, how do we address, sorry, I didn't talk to you, I've talked to you about gas. So how do we solve the gas? And there's something I want to tell you about the gas. The gas master plan intended to work very well, actually. And it was working very well. What happened is that the power sector is one that bankrupted the gas sector also. Because the power sector consumes between 70 and 80%. And when there is no consistent payment by the power sector to the gas sector, even though the money is coming, but it's not coming regularly, that is, there is no consistency that will make somebody to plan investor not to have sustainable investment. But there are some few regulatory issues that the regulator need to address, even if the power sector start paying. And then, how do we avoid unsolicited proposal and private sector investment like NIPP? I want to tell you that we are a nation that forgets things very easy. We did NIPP. NIPP is actually unsolicited proposal. It's not that we decide as a nation. Look, we decide as a nation that this is what we want. We didn't decide. Just one person that was working in gas in GE. In fact, at that time, sir, we pre-qualified GE now for tender of the first SCADA in 2002. And they said they are not interested. They are not even interested in doing business in Nigeria. But they are interested in signing contract with us under FOB so that they can manufacture gas turbine and put it on the sea for us to clear, or if you like, don't clear it. You understand what I'm saying? This is what they did to us. And that is why that project has a lot of problem, because that is why we had significant problem with the project, because there was no study. Now, Siemens is the same thing. Let me tell you, after 10 years, they appointed a Nigerian as a president EGE Sub-Saharan Africa. And she started talking, and then he convinced government that they will do the same type of, who are called in the office of the vice president. I protested, and we killed the project in the office of the vice president. That was in 2018. Sorry, sir. I'm about to finish, sir. Now, do you know what happened? A staff of GE left GE to Siemens, and they went and convinced the government at a higher level that they want to do Siemens. The GE project now became Siemens project. That was how we had the Siemens project, that they are going to electrify Nigeria, they will do Egypt model, and there was no single study, sir, no single study. And that is why, as of today, where is the GE project, the Siemens project? Nothing. And how can you solve a problem and create a capacity of 20 megawatt by building service substation? It doesn't make sense. So we have to be careful about what you call unsolicited proposal. As a nation, if we want to move forward, we will have to build capacity of our people. If you look at the transmission rehabilitation expansion program, PAMSEC can confirm, we created PIUs, we trained them, and they are the one that created the project. Those staff of TCN, they are the one that created the project. They are the one that did the procurement. They did everything. There was no single consultant that we have. The reason why we are not realizing the project, immediately after my exit, those people who know the project are the one that were the first target. That is the reason why we are in limbo. We are not moving forward. But for us to continue, whatever donor we are dealing, either World Bank or African Development Bank, we have to build the capacity of people to be able to be the driver, and for them to design the project and for us. Now, the next thing we need to do is that, I don't know, we need to address the issue of multiple guarantees. Whether we like it, we have to address the issue of multiple guarantee. We need to come with policy, national policy on WAP, and we have to craft our policy on climate change. I think this is the last, Permanent Secretary. Permanent Secretary, this is the last. We are talking about climate change. Nigeria is dealing with climate change the same way France is dealing with climate change, the same way Germany is dealing with climate change. Doesn't it make sense? It doesn't make sense. Because we have energy poverty. So, have we carried out a study that shows that if we remove all these generators, small generators on the street, what is the quantity of gas emission that we are removing from the society? So if we are fixing our distribution line, it means, and transmission and generation, it means we are removing all those small generators. So that means us fixing our distribution is also contributing to what? Climate change. So we have to graft our policy to be like that. Secondly, all these solar homes that we are putting is not sustainable. The only way we can have solar, sustainable solar, we have to put the solar on the grid. We cannot put solar on the grid until we stabilize the grid. So stabilizing the grid should also be a climate change issue. Do you understand what I'm saying? So we need to craft our policy in that way so that we can have a say, which means when we are fixing a transmission substation in Nigeria, it means that fixing of transmission substation should be consistent with climate finance, because we are fixing the network so that we can put more solar on the network. That is my view. I think this is the last. I want to use this opportunity to thank the Vice Chancellor and the management of Nile University. I don't know whether I did justice to the topic, but I'm very grateful for your support and everything. Thank you.